Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for joining nice early, everyone. This is the Disciplined Agile meetup where we come and where we show up every single month to bring you very important and very good, insight from the marketplace. Today, we are here again, as usual, to share with you something very important. But before we go into it, I believe it's very important to start with why, to start with the objective. And that is why I am going to invite one of uh, my team members, that's Bibi, to come up and really help us share why we're here today, the objective of the discipline Agile Meetup.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. So our objective, we start with the why, about the group. Disciplined Agile Meetup. We are a dynamic community championing the true value of project management, leadership, emerging technologies, lean and agile practices. Our mission is to empower professionals and organizations across Africa who want to strengthen their capabilities in agile and lean frameworks and translating them into measurable results. We actively promote continuous knowledge transfer in project management, leadership, emerging technologies, lean startup, and other lean practices. Our focus areas are agile, project management, and technology innovation. And we are brought to you by Pete Lauren Consulting, hosted by our awesome Pete, in partnership
Thank
with
you.
PMI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bibi. Thank you so much, Bibi. All right. So I can see quite a lot of people really telling us where they're joining from in the chat message. Of course, we have Pamela from the UK, one of our regulars. We have Katrina joining us today from the USA. Of course, from me, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Quite early and cold this morning. Chika Lake from Lagos. Abna, thanks for joining from Namibia. Of course, Selena, thanks for joining again from Lagos. Omotola from Lagos. Tokwe from Nigeria. Ebenezer from Lagos. And of course, our wonderful friend from the Bahamas, Andrea, thanks for joining. My friend, my brother, Patrick from the US, Abubakar, Leah, Precious from Canada. Oh, it keeps going on. If I continue to read, we might be here for a long time. And I have AV from Ghana as well, Abiola from Ontario, Canada, Kolawole from Canada. We have Yarel from Malawi, and so on and so forth. At some point, I'm going to come back and really mention your name. I can't thank you enough for joining. Of course, we try to bring value to the table, and of course, from there, what you can definitely, um, go back to work tomorrow and apply. So today, I am sure it's going to be another wonderful time. Now, to take us further, I have Ebenezer who is going to introduce our wonderful speaker today. Ebenezer, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pete. Good day, everyone, and welcome once again this evening. So moving on, we have Katrina Helkoka with us, known as the Scrum Mother on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. A certified Scrum Master, product owner, and published author with a passion for helping teams and leaders in navigating growth, conflict, and change with clarity and art. One who is drawing on her MS in conflict management from Kennesaw State University and years of agile coaching experience. She currently brings a unique blend of strategy, empathy, and real-world insights to our work. Her debut book, Scrum Master Application and Interview Process, was released in 2024, and her second book, Scrum Master First 90 Days, The Scrum Model Approach, is set to launch in the year 2026. Faith-grounded, health-conscious, and unafraid to challenge broken systems, Katrina inspires others to lead authentically, transform intentionally, and show up fully, fruitful, fulfilled, and fiercely themselves. She lives in Georgia with her two cats, Avery and Fiona. Discipline Agile Meetup team with a singular honor, and I would want you to join me as we welcome tonight, Katrina Coker.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Katrina. I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you so much, Ebenezer, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. So, our topic today will be navigating conflict with confidence within teams, finding the root cause in teams. Right. I have had this a very good opportunity to sit on the teaching of Katrina, and it is, I would say, very, very, practical. And so today will not be an exception. I will not talk too much, so I think we'll hand over to you, Katrina, to really take us forward in terms of what conflict is and finding the root cause of conflict within our teams. Thank you all so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Are you seeing my presentation? Navigate conflict with confidence with teams. If I can get an emojis in the chat to let me know that you can in fact see my presentation, that would be great. Great. Thank you. So I'm just changing things around because I have my presentation on one side, but I like to see people in the chat as much as possible. Although Pete, I know that you said that you're going to be kind of monitoring the chat for me as well, so it'd be helpful. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I also want to say thank you to Andrea because Andrea incidentally introduced me to Pete because we both were at the Bahamas Agile Project Management Community Professional Development Day. So thank you both. Thank you also all of you for being here. I always like to start off by saying thank you because you could be anywhere else right now. And my mission is to teach, inspire, and move towards purpose, power, and progress. And that starts with today. And I strive for this to be one of the most productive hours of your day. And I'm going to ask you at the end some things that you found beneficial. And I'm always open to seek feedback. So kind of to set some expectations, the first thing is what we will not be doing. This is not a Scrum 101 or an Agile 101 class. Normally I say, hey, this is actually what I'm doing, but in fact, we're not. So today is all about conflict and give you a little intro, a little bit more about who I am, how I feel that I have the authority to talk to you all this evening. We'll go over some conflict foundations and we'll talk through some actual conflicts and we'll analyze them together. Okay. And then my personal objective is for you to walk away with at least one thing that you can do today, walking out of this meeting to be more comfortable with the idea of conflict. All right. And then this is going to be a very interactive session. So you don't have to participate, but I'm going to ask questions throughout the session and I would love to get your feedback. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up emoji or whatever you want to use to let me know that you can hear me and you are alive and well? Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So first off, for those of you, I am from the United States, so just a little bit of Georgia is down here for the right. Anybody been to Georgia in the United States? Because there's a country named Georgia. There's the state named Georgia. That's where I'm from. And if you're ever here of Georgia Peach, I am born and raised in Georgia, where I went to school as was mentioned in the introduction of Kennesaw State University. I have a bachelor's in international business as well as a master's from conflict management at the university, but I've also lived in Dallas, Texas, as well as Washington, D.C., but ultimately I've come back to Georgia where I am now. And you see my two cats. And then it's just a little bit of fun facts. Do you have any other foodies out there who love to eat, drink, and be merry? Yes, Pamela, Pete are saying yes, that is me. So this was in 2024, I went to the Napa Valley Wine Train. If you ever get the opportunity to do that, it's amazing. And then I also, for my 40th birthday in January of 2025, I used Scrum to train for my first half marathon. So, and I can prove that it was almost a perfect day because of iterating throughout the process every week. as far as my conflict coaching journey and why I feel like I have the credibility to be here, I have spent the last 10 years working with software development teams specifically as a business analyst. I've also been a product owner, but my key niche is the Scrum Master role. And I've been a fully dedicated Scrum Master for about 8 years. In addition to, I go by the Scrum Mother, but it is actually the name of my company. So it's my social media handles, but I also do coaching, mentoring, workshops, working with teams, individuals, and organizations. So I'm also a published author, and have worked in multiple industries. So my experience is in the medical field. I've worked in corporate relocation. Those of you who've ever moved from one country to another or from one state to another, I have worked with people that help do that. I've worked on the backside of human resource technology. I've worked in financial services. I've worked in the food and hospitality industry with conferences and events. And my current client is in the nonprofit sector. So my experience I'm going to talk to you today has gathered from both my educational experience as well as this professional experience over the last 10 plus years. But of course, the disclaimer is always that this is me, myself, and I. So you may have a different point of view, and that's okay. And the people that I work for may say something different, and that's okay too. But the first thing we got to start off with is how, and this is where you can come off mute, you can post in the chat, what do you think about when you hear the word conflict? What comes to mind? Words, images?
Difference of opinions, disagreements.
Okay, differences of opinions. All right. Anyone else have a word? Let's see, chaos, disagreements. Okay, we've got a few things. Misunderstanding. Okay. It's an unavoidable aspect of human existence. Okay, Leah, we're going to come back to you. Stress, anger, perspectives, all good things. All right. So before we try to analyze any conflict, before we try to step outside of our house and work with other human beings, we have to start there. And the perspective is that a lot of how we deal with conflict as adults or how we were raised when we were children and what went down in our house, whether we were collaborative coming to a table or whether there were slamming doors or the complete opposite, whether there was stonewalling and it was complete silence and you talking about feelings and hard stuff was not an option. So when we talk about conflict, the first thing I'm going to share with y'all is, have anybody ever heard of the Thomas Kelman conflict mode instrument? This is the TKI. This was one of the most important things during my master's degree, where you can actually go to this QR code. It should take you to their website. Please let me know if you cannot access it so I can send you the actual link. But this is where you can take, it's like 100 questions or something. And essentially it's a rating on your level of assertiveness and your level of cooperativeness at any given time. Okay. And it's broken down into 5 different conflict modes. Now, when I presented this before, somebody says, well, what if I'm different at home versus when I'm at work? And it's really, I think that we have different, it's about knowing your responses, your gut reactions, no matter where you are. It's being self-aware, right? So I will tell you for myself, when I'm at my best and it is a good day, and I'm like Katrina, the Scrum Mother, the conflict manager, I'm collaborating. I'm super assertive. I'm super cooperative. I will say though, when I feel unsafe, I'm avoiding. I'm going to go hide in a corner, right? We don't want to talk about it. I don't know what's going to happen. And so it just depends on where you are. And ultimately, that is where we have to start before we do anything else. So I'm going to ask, anybody want to come off mute or post in the chat where you think you are? What stands out today? We'll just talk about like in a work environment. Where do you feel? And I think there might be a slight delay in the chat. Okay. We got collaborating, compromising. Okay. I would say when I I would go back and forth between being compromising and accommodating, because I would often defer to other people. I think that was actually what makes me good at my job, is because we try to work things out. But I would say as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit more digging my heels in, we'll say, right? Of being comfortable saying, I'm not comfortable, right? That in itself is important for us when we're working with ourselves or working with other people, knowing that some people, even if you give them permission to say, hey, tell me if you're not okay, not everybody's going to do that, right? All right, lots of compromising, accommodating. And I will tell you, the other thing to consider is sometimes we have to be aware when we need to step into one of these modes. For example, there are some people that are natural competitors, and you need to level up when you walk into a room with a competitor, right? So there are some things where you have to get more comfortable with being more assertive. Make sense? All right. So the reason why I say start with yourself is because it's a term. I don't know if this is broad around the world, but there's a phrase that hurt people, right? And if you did have a negative response to conflict, and it does mean something where you're butting heads, and it elicits the fight, flight, or freeze response, then it can make it a less able to work through things, right? Even when it's a low conflict per se event. But I would also say knowing yourself is half the battle. It's a GI Joe term, and a previous therapist would always say that. So having the right people on your team, I think, is important. Whether that is a therapist, whether that is a coach, who you'll see Jamie, who is the woman on the second to the left. That's one of my coaches. And then Monica is someone I meet with as accountability partner. I meet with her once a week for co-working sessions. So whether it's a priest, a pastor, a rabbi, I think having people on your team that you can go to work through that stuff, because unfortunately, a lot of um, negative people stuff that happens at work is because people aren't doing the inner work, and they're bringing the inner hard stuff, when sometimes we need just to talk through that. Okay. Now, with all that in mind, the next section, I'm going to spend just going through some basic conflict foundations, because it shapes how we approach a situation. Okay, so this is more just conflict foundations that I want to be aware of before we start analyzing conflict. Can I get a thumbs up or emoji that we're good with that? Okay, cool. So the first thing is, what is conflict, right? I'd say conflict is another word for blocker. And blockers just it can just be differences. And the definition of conflict literally just means different. I have an image of a fingerprint here. Why do I have an image of a fingerprint? See, anybody in the chat? Anybody? Let's say Pete. Why do I have an image of a fingerprint?
Every fingerprint is unique.
Patrick, yes, every fingerprint. It's innate. We were born with it, right? We were born with it. We were born with differences, right? So trying to avoid conflict, aka differences, it's not possible. So one of the things when Pete and I were going back and forth, I'm always very sensitive when people start saying turn conflict into XYZ, turn conflict from chaos to whatever. It's just conflict is natural, and we want to somewhat be able to embrace that conflict is unavoidable and innate, and it doesn't have to be bad. Okay. So the other thing, if you learn nothing else from this section, is world views, right? And the analogy I'll use is, we all have different windows that we were looking out. We have different windows of looking in, and that has shaped how we be able to move about the world. And previously, conflict management practices treated conflict as just between me and you, right? So Pamela, you and I were having a disagreement, and traditional conflict would say it's just between me and you, but that's never really true, right? Because there's always interested in observers, in whenever we're dealing with things in life, but also if Pamela and I get in a disagreement, whether it's good or it could just be a deep conversation, I might go talk to somebody about it. Or if it is not having the outcome that I would want, maybe I might be frustrated when I get home, which is also why I tell people what happens at home impacts our work and what happens at work impacts our home. And so the from the literally the handbook of conflict management, I was going to bring it, but it's like a book that's this big about that the new definition of is more of two or more parties and everything that shapes us. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm watering all of this down. So I'm always happy to go into more, but the high level is just worldviews. Just know that when we're at work working with our teams, it's just not always what we think it is. And maybe we might look at something and go, I'll give the example. The thumbs up sign in some countries is not a good thing, right? So as a United States American, the middle finger is not a good thing, right? So if I go to another country and I'm like, thumbs up, y'all, what's up? It doesn't, they may interpret it, oh my gosh, how offensive that person's trying to be. And it's not always like that. It may be offensive to you, and that's your feelings are still valid. Your perception, your worldview is still valid, but that we always have to understand that our intent, the intent may not always be the same. Conflict is not always as it seems. Absolutely. So we have to get into then what are some other things that might impact our ability to identify and resolve any differences, right? So the first is trust. Has anybody heard of a trust fall? I actually used to be, this is a true story, whatever, the thing that kind of took me off this trajectory was I used to be an instructor for a ropes course. So part of this ropes course was doing trust falls. And I have my cats here. They cuddle with me at night. And if y'all know anything about cats, cats don't do that if they don't trust you, right? So the responsibility of trust. Or the ability for must have the environment for success that people must need to know to trust that you're not going to mess it up. You're not going to make it worse, right? They may not say, hey, I don't know if this person is going to be able to move us forward, but at least I need to know that they're not going to make it worse at any given situation. Now, somebody has asked me, my perspective is, if somebody said you should always walk in and you should always trust innately. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about having immediate trust? Okay, I see some eyes going, I'm not so sure. So that is my perspective. I agree with you. It's tricky. Yes, it's tricky. So my perspective is that you should always assume no trust, always assume good intent. But it's just like if a friend had surgery and you knew that, you would approach them differently. But if you don't know that and they had surgery and you can like give them a hug, you could harm them. So my perspective is tread lightly, assume good intent, assume nobody's trying to hurt each other, but I would say start with assuming that nobody doesn't trust you, and then how would you approach them if you were trying to build their trust? Trust and watch. Test the water first. Completely agree. Now, how many of you like bananas? If you like bananas, I intimately do not trust your judgment because I don't like bananas, and that is bias, right? That's a form of bias, and how that can impact our relationships with other people. So, for example, when you have why this is important is sometimes the team problem child is right. So if you have a bias against this person, you may not want to hear anything they have to say. Or you might have some friends that are wrong. They're in the wrong. And you have to understand where your bias is at all times. Then you have boundaries. Does anybody not allow shoes in your home? This is more of actually a cultural thing abroad rather than the US, but even in my home, I don't like when people wear shoes. That is a boundary, right? And what it means is that If I tell you, well, I want to wear shoes, I'm not coming to your house if I can't have to take my shoes off. The boundary is not for me. The boundary is for you. You said that's okay. And other people will need to adjust to your boundary, but there are consequences. And there's also sometimes that example boundary might reach a stalemate where I'm like, hey, I don't want to go to somebody's house where I have to take my shoes off. Maybe we don't go to each other's houses. We meet up in person, or maybe that might be a stalemate to where we can't engage in a relationship, and not everybody's supposed to be in a relationship with each other. But that's where it doesn't mean that you change your boundaries. You say, hey, this is really important to me. I don't want people to smoke in my house. I don't want people to wear shoes in my house. And that's my boundary, right? Sometimes we reach where irrevocable commitment. Have you ever had or heard where somebody gets a job offer and they take the job offer to their employer and be like, hey, if you don't give me a raise or match this, I'm going elsewhere. That's a form of an irrevocable commitment, right? And that's something that sometimes we have to, it's a harsher boundary, is the way I would describe it. Which again, being aware of people's boundaries in the workplace and our teams, sometimes we don't talk about our boundaries, and sometimes we don't know a boundary until it's been crossed. And we have to build a psychological safety within our teams where people feel comfortable talking about these things. Some people's not huggers. Those of you that are huggers, y'all want everybody to be huggers. People immediately, you start to go and shake somebody's hand who's a hugger. They're like, oh no, I'm a hugger. There's not like, hey, are you a hugger? Like, do we want to hug, shake hand? So not everybody's a hugger. And that's an example of a boundary, right? And we want to be more attentive to maybe asking for permission or being accepting, like, hey, maybe a fist bump is okay. We talked about the intent, right? Intent versus impact. I'm going to give you a funny scenario and I'm going to give you a sad scenario. Which one do you want first? What'd you say?
Funny.
Funny, Pam?
Yep.
Okay. So the funny example, I already naturally have been I don't do a lot of glitz and glamour on my social media videos, but I do consider my captions. I'm really intentional about grammar, punctuation. If something's spelled wrong, it's usually my fault. I'll put it that way. Well, one day I was talking a video about Kanban, to do, doing, done, and captions translated it to condom. So if I had not paid attention and not edited it, somebody would have read it or heard it as condom, to do, doing, done board. Not the impact that I want to go for, right? I've also had the more sad one where I babysat four girls a long time ago that their mom had just passed away. The oldest was 13. And I thought I was being helpful, cleaning the house, like cleaning everything. Well, I ended up cleaning and washing all the linens, and there was a pillowcase was the last thing that she said smelled like her mom. It was terrible. That was not my intent. But I also want to say that I know a colleague that believes that you should always believe good intent. And that if you believe good intent, you don't have to apologize. Okay. I do not practice that. I do think as I said before, assume low trust, but assume good intent. And I think it helps communicate and to say, hey, I really know that you didn't mean any intent by that, but the impact is it hurt my feelings, right? On my days, that would have been hard to come back from. Okay. So when we're talking about apology, that's the other thing, is whether it is, boundaries, whether it's trust, whether it's bias, that the value of a genuine apology goes a long way, even if you didn't attend it. And what I believe a genuine apology can do, even if I go, hey, Pete, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean it. Or Pete goes, that was not my intent. I might say, you know what? I know it wasn't your intent, but I appreciate your self-awareness. Thank you for taking time. So an apology can be a trust building activity as well. And so I say, does anybody know who this gentleman below is in a yellow shirt? In the US, it's a gentleman named Mike Rowe. that he used to have a show called Dirty Jobs. And the show, you can look it up, it was about where it was skilled trade type roles that a very labor blue collar intensive. And so I say the difference between apology and a genuine apology is apology is like, hey, I'm sorry, what I said when I was hungry. I get hangry. So this is particularly funny to me. I have family that throws food at me, but it's also the genuine apology is doing the work. It's being able to admit that you've done something wrong and acknowledging to repair the relationship. But the key thing here that I want people to know is forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. An apology does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes you just got to set the record straight and make amends, but that does not mean you have to stay in relationship with that person. Okay? A hungry man is an angry man. Okay, so when we put all of these together, Leah, I'm going to come back to you because I think what you said was, what do all of these have in common? Conflict, worldviews, trust, bias, boundaries, intent, genuine apology. Leah, what did you say? What was the thing that came up? And I don't see you, Leah, but I think, Leah, you said perspectives, right? Conflict. All of these creates opportunity. It creates choices. It creates new life. Because say you have someone that has not been comfortable speaking up, and we finally get to a point, like how have we ever had the quiet teammate that during a retrospective after a long time, they finally go, hey, they start getting more comfortable. And because when people start to feel safe and feel that they can, one, feel safe enough agreeing, they feel safe enough to actually still feel safe. And I say that by sometimes people have had negative experiences. So even when good feelings elicit uncomfortability because they don't trust whether it is true, right? Conflicts create opportunities and choices and new life. So we need to know those things. Putting conflict in a new perspective, new choices, new life, doesn't mean it's not going to feel good all the time, or it doesn't mean it's going to feel good all the time, but we want to have those in mind because what somebody is saying on the surface or the behaviors that we're seeing does not always mean anything. Okay, so this next section is we're going to talk about different types of conflict. So again, consider that conflict just means different. Conflict just means blocker. Okay. I have identified, most people think of people when you think of conflict. And to be fair, that's actually true to some extent of that we can't have conflict if we don't exist. Right. So there will always, where there's people, there will be conflict. It just doesn't mean bad. So in addition to people type of blockers, there's also processes and technology. Has anybody heard that framework or that series of words, people, process, technology? I think it works. It's how I shape my whole coaching practice, right? When we're trying to, the subtitle of this session was on root causes, right? And so that is where I shape from. I ask a lot of questions about what's going well from people, what's not going well from people, what's going well from processes, what's not going well, what's going well from technology, and so on. So I originally was going to go through a series of questions with you, but what we're going to do is I've already pre-selected some options, some different types of conflict. I'm going to have y'all vote on them so we can talk through them. Okay. So people blockers. Note again, even when there's people involved, it's not always that somebody's doing something wrong. So these are personality differences and maybe a mixed mash of skills and competencies, or straight up, you might have problem children or what I call corporate arsonist, that no matter what you do, there's always no, you give all these options and they're trying to set fires, right? And we got enough fires, right? We got enough fires to put out on a day basis when things are going. All right, so here's 4 options. Number 1 is, these are different types of people conflicts. Team member is well liked by their peers, but people question their ability to do their job. 2, team member is disliked by their peers, but people acknowledge that they are good at their job. Team member is liked by their peers and people acknowledge that they are good at their job, but there's always something else that might be there. right? But team member is disliked by their peers and people question their ability to do their job. These are real scenarios. And you might be like, why is that person still working there? Well, this question. So in the chat, please tell me 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which one do we want to analyze first?
All right, feel free to draw. Okay, they are already
Okay, yep, I'm
coming.
seeing. Okay. Okay, we're getting lots of 3s. So let's go with 3. 3s and 1s. Okay, let's go with 3. Okay, so we're gonna time box this at 5 minutes. Okay, so that we can if somebody can set a 5-minute timer for me, that would be great. So we're gonna go with 3. Team member is disliked by their peers and people acknowledge that they are good at their job, but there's something else going on, right? Team member is liked by their peers and people acknowledge that they're good at their job, but there might be something else going on. Okay. So in my experience, this example was the person was liked by their peers. They acknowledge they're good at the job, but may not have been on the right team. That's a context, right? So before we start diagnosing, what do you want to know? What are questions you would want to know? So you can come off mute or post in the chat. What would you want to know to help learn more? Why he or she is disliked? Good question. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay, I guess we're looking at number 2, right? That's fine. Let's do 2. Team member is disliked for their peers, but it's good at their job. Let's assume that, right? So can you post in the chat, Pete, again, number 2? Yeah. Okay. What else? So some people said, why is this person disliked? It's a good question. What happened? Good question. Jealousy may be set, but we can't tell jealousy yet. We can't identify it as jealousy yet. What is his or her personality? Okay. Good question, Leah. Good questions. We need to explore personality traits. Okay. If they're good at their job, what could really be bad enough to disqualify them? Okay. There might be communication issues, but we don't want to identify the problem yet. What does being good at their job look like? It's a good question. So I'm going to take this. I like to do word by word. So let's break our problem down word by word. Team member is disliked by their peers, but people acknowledge. Team. What team? What team is this person on? What's going on with the rest of the team? Which team member is it? How long has this person been on that team? We might want to ask. Who else is on that team? Who is considered this person's peers? Right? So this is truly my process where there's so many questions. Like whenever somebody starts telling me, specifically when somebody says they're not liked by their peers, it's important to know what's going on because being good at their job may mean that they have to push people. And maybe people don't like that. Right? What are the personal values? Does this person have some form of authority? What power relations exist between them? These are all great questions. Okay. There are some cases where I've seen where the team member is disliked by their peers because that is in a culture, a team or an organizational culture that is deferential. We're fine. We're good. This often happens in what I've seen in faith-based organizations to where conflict is like confrontation is often seen as uncomfortable, right? So this person might be in an organization and a team where everybody else is like, it's fine, or they're working with, they've been doing things for so long, but the one new person is like, this is wild. Why do we have to do it like this? This doesn't make sense. There's so many better ways that we could be doing this. And everybody's like, stop. Like, we'll just do it. We're fine. Right. But when it says, but people acknowledge they are good at their job. Okay. So they're disliked by their peers, but people are good at their job. Somebody says, what does it mean to be good at a job? We want to know, what is their job? Is their job something to where they have authority, as someone mentioned? Is their job to be a people leader? Is their job to push back? I'm a scrum master. My job is often to follow up with people, ask questions, and hold people accountable to some extent. And I've often been in roles where somebody else had been previously doing that, and they were previously in the role and they weren't doing that. So I come in and people are like, wait, what are you doing? The last scrum master wasn't like that. So that could be looking at me thinking I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Or I might be doing what I'm supposed to be doing and you just don't like it. But there's also sometimes where this person is a high productivity. They have high productivity. They are drivers. Literally just saw, thank you for the 45 seconds. I just saw a gentleman say that he hires divas. A lot of people don't want to hire divas, but he hires divas because divas drive the team to success. And so the technicality here is, are we driving success or are we derailing success? And as our approach is actually causing more problems culturally and with team morale than actually helping. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that could be shaping what this means, but we always want to ask more. All right, let's go to processes. Could you please start the time clock? All right, processes. These are the blockers about ways of working. The when, the where, the how, we do anything in our lives. Most of the time when people are talking about challenges, even when they are identifying as a people problem, it's usually process related, right? And so the first option that we can choose from is, people don't know my business exists, or my department, or my product line, which has happened. I've worked with where I had a team was working on a product and it was actually a well-profitable product in the company, but the rest of the company had no idea who they were. 2, stakeholders say their requests go into a black hole. Customers, stakeholders. Or 3, the company asks for feedback, sends out a survey to employees or customers, and they don't receive any responses. This might be the Scrum Masters who's asking for feedback in a retrospective and nobody responds. Which of these do we want to talk about? 1, 2, or 3? Okay. Okay, lots of 3s. Okay. Company asks for feedback, sends out a survey to employees or customers, and they don't receive any responses. What are questions you would want to know? What would you want to ask first? Are the survey questions too long? Good option. What is the organizational culture? Okay. Were the employees warned beforehand? Warned beforehand. That's actually really good terminology, because like a lot of times people might be like, hey, we need you to answer these questions about what you want us to do in this work and to make work life better, but we're not doing A, B, C, or D. So don't list any of those answers. So that's actually a really good one. Okay, so many good ones. All right. Are there too many questions? Are the questions difficult? Is it not clear enough? Feedback for what? That's amazing. What are we asking feedback on? The why is not clear. Is the survey anonymized? Survey has too many personal questions. All right. So if I got this feedback, if I got this challenge that somebody raised during one-on-ones or during a team retrospective, I would say the company asked for feedback. I would say, what was the feedback they were asking? How did they ask it? Was it an email? Was it on a company URL? Was it a survey? How did you tell people that you need to complete it? Sends out a survey to how did they send it out? Right? Did they send it out by posting it on their intranet? Or did they say, hey, everybody, we posted it on our Facebook page. Did they put it up in a team meeting? Okay, it says they sent it out to employees. What employees? I was just in an organization that they realized that they would send a mass email out to thousands of people and it would only go to 500, right? So we have to figure out what is the process and that they don't receive any responses. This is a technicality because I would go, do they not receive any responses? Meaning like you have 0 people who responded to this, or is any really mean we didn't receive many? Because sometimes people use language that is absolute, like you never do this, this never happens, this always happens. And we want to be very clear on what does that actually mean. Okay, what is the best method to obtain feedback? And if we fix on the underlying processes, how much of it would disappear? Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. We fix on the decision rights, feedback loops. So this particular thing often happens a lot, right? Companies saying, how many times we are in a company and they send in a customer, something for people to receive. I've also, people send out a survey. The company says, oh, only 25% of the employees filled this out. Well, I've also had where sometimes it's not being sent out by a company email address. And how many times do we take a security program that says don't click on links from unknown senders, right? So sometimes when we say company asks for feedback, not only is it what are we asking feedback on, how is it being sent on, but who is the sender? Who is the sender? We have to identify those things. Okay. Anything else that we would want to know here that you would want to know? Okay. So then the last one, my favorite is technology blockers. These are dealing with tools, equipment, hardware, software, the stuff and access to the stuff. These are my favorite because they are not people problems and they're often the easiest to resolve, right? So, like access to Jira or access to DevOps or, getting somebody on an email distro. Easy problems. Give it to me. I have it resolved by within an hour, right? It usually means that nobody's doing anything wrong. Now, you might have some case where somebody actually is supposed to do something related to technology and they didn't. That's a people problem. For the most part, these are my favorite. All right. So we've got where I'm just gonna read through these and we can pick just one and talk just a few minutes on it. There's no social media presence, number 1. 2, customers don't use the kiosk to pay, which has happened before. Or 3, employees are instructed to use a tool but don't. Which one do we want to talk about? Okay, 3 again. Employees are instructed to use a tool but don't. What are questions you'd want to know? Them wayward employees, you got to watch out for them. Okay, let's see. Let's ask some of the questions that when this has happened, is the tool complex? Somebody says. All right. When this has happened, it says employees. What employees? All employees? Certain portion of employees? Are certain employees, are all employees instructed to use this tool and only a portion don't? Are all employees instructed to use this tool and nobody does? Are only a portion of employees asked to use this tool and don't? What is the tool? What is the tool? Do they even know how to it? I was working with one organization. Somebody one day came in and said, hey, we're going to start using Asana, which is a backlog management tool. It was a team of 5. 3 of the team members use to-do lists. They'll write it down. They don't care. They said it felt more like it was more burden to go into the tool. So that was one example. Like what problem was this tool trying to solve? Do they have another option to use? Right? Does the tool help them do their work more efficiently? How was it rolled out? What was the communication plan? How do the employees actually know that they were supposed to be doing this? Who told them? How was it told? Like, hey, I didn't know I was supposed to be entering my time in a timesheet versus, a clock-in card. I didn't know. Sorry. Okay. All right. So all that to being said is asking questions goes into our our techniques to practice conflict management. The number one thing I would say is ask questions before you start solving the problem. That is one of my biggest pain points with people when they start coming in and say, "Hey, I know what the problem is. I'm going to tell you what to do, how to fix it." And my experience says, even those of us are experienced, just because we saw something presenting in one case at one company with one person does not mean that somebody else doing the exact same thing, saying the exact same thing, means the exact same thing. So always ask questions. All right. So what did I do in one of my first few slides that could be considered a technique to manage conflict? Anybody know? Not the first slide was my saying thank you. What was the second slide? Right? The agenda. And what I did is I set expectations of what the scope was, saying this is what I'm going to be doing, this is what I'm not going to be doing, and I gave you an objective. And I said, my objective, my intent is for this. Okay? I'm going to come back to that. But that is one way. Tell people. This is often known that women go, when someone says, "Hey, are you okay?" And they're like, "I'm fine." Don't say I'm fine. Say, "No, this is actually how I feel." Or proactively say, "Hey, I intend to do this." In December, I decided I was going to help this organization clean up their backlog. And I'll be honest, it did not communicate it the best that I could have. And I did a lot of great work, but because I didn't communicate it as well, they felt like it was a disaster right before Christmas, basically, because I didn't state as clearly to the right person, at least to the right person, what I was doing. So state your intentions. If anything, learn about yourself. I'm going to provide a lot of options for some career personality assessments. So knowing yourself and how you react to things. A backlog. A backlog is a conflict management tool. Personally, professionally, at home, having clear stated, this is all of my intentions, helps everybody be more clear. All right, facilitate a retrospective, which this goes to. This is my first objective was my intent was for you to walk away with at least one thing that you could do to practice better conflict management today or feel more comfortable with it. So in a retrospective fashion, what was the most beneficial thing that you learned today? And do you feel like you in fact can walk away today feeling more informed or more comfortable with the idea of conflict? See a head shaking. Anybody? No? Okay. You can always provide feedback, but that is, oh wait, somebody was come off mute. Somebody come off mute.
No, I was just gonna say, people are already typing in the chat. Yeah, great.
Okay, learn new perspectives, happy and wider perspective, learn to always ask questions, more confident solving conflict, focus on root cause type questions. I'm going to send this to you, Pete. I'll ask email address, but in my presentation deck, I actually have a list of questions that I genuinely ask, specifically when I get started with a team, before I make any changes, even from a scrum. I ask a lot of questions in one-on-ones before I do anything. So I actually have a list of those questions that you're able to use. It's also, you're going to see this in my book that I'm writing right now in Scrum Master First 90 Days. And it's just my conflict management framework that can help. Okay. Never make an assumption, always ask questions. Okay, so the flip side of that, was there anything we talked about today that you did not find that was valuable or beneficial? All right, so I always say, I'm going to go off of somebody else's quote that feedback is a gift, and I love gifts. So please feel free to provide any feedback. This also is we'll call this the quick pass to a larger workshop that I do, to where in the workshop, whether it's an individual, team, or organization, we actually can go through the questions and identify what's working well in our life, team, or organization versus some challenges so that we can then prioritize those. And that's actually my practice for any team I get started with is my approach is to ask a lot of questions, put that into a consolidated themes, and then we work together to figure out what's the highest priority. All right. And then, get to comfortable with people that are not like ourselves, whether that's group, being a part of individuals, news outlets, newspapers, attend something that's, just get comfortable with differences, right? In the US, I don't know if you have it, I know a lot of people are from Nigeria, so you'll have to tell me this. We have something, city council, we have school boards, PTAs. These are examples of problem-solving bodies that you could join if you want to get more comfortable practicing conflict management. They all live that their job is to manage conflict. Their manages to compliance and is to solve people's challenges. But if you're like me and you want to go through something more formal, there are conflict management, conflict resolution programs that you can get at a certificate level, a bachelor's degree, master's is what I have. There's also doctorate degrees. There's something called bystander training, which I am an advocate for. Or some people, an organization that I'm a part of, it calls it an upstander, because you're standing up. Or mediation ombudsman training. And then the last way to practice conflict management is to be vulnerable, to have that conversation, right? When we start with ourselves, us being willing to say, hey, reach out to that person, family, friend, that maybe we really need to work through some things and that we can maybe start a new generation. So we start with us being able to exhibit healthy, happy lives. So y'all, thank y'all so much for having me. The way I can help you, next steps, I have one-on-ones, I do half-day workshops. I can do a full conflict assessment where literally we sit down and we go through all these questions and we come back with some themes. Then we put it on our backlog and we prioritize it and say, hey, there are actually things in our lives that we can control. And then, so if you'd like to do any of that, you can schedule a free 30-minute conflict consult with me today at any time. Just it's on my Calendly, so I would happy to chat with you, your team, or your business if you think that any of this could be valuable. And as always, again, I say thank you for having me. That this I'm very honored and blessed to have this opportunity to be with y'all. I will say one of the things I normally do at the beginning of my presentation is I like to do how I can relate to your community. I've never been to Africa, and it looks like a lot of you are from Nigeria, so maybe that might be one of the places that I start. So if you have recommendations of, hey, someone that is from the US, never been to Africa, where should I go first? I would love your pointers on that, and maybe that's a goal I can put on my life backlog. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I would love to chat more. So feel free to reach out to me, email, my LinkedIn, or the Calendly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. In fact, the chat box has gone really bizarre. Everybody is just saying thank you and thank you and thank you. This is so engaging. To your question, we have about 54 countries in Africa, and every country, almost every country is really good, right? So it's really difficult to choose. However, I think if you speak to Andrea, yeah, Andrea has been to some of our some of the countries, and we welcome people in Africa. So we can always, recommend for you. Anyway, we also have a lot of people represented, a lot of countries represented in the community. So we will. So the first invitation has actually come. Gerard is saying, "Come to Las Gidi," and that's Lagos, Nigeria. All right, cool.
Also, Pete, I am actually going to Australia for my first time this summer, and I'm starting in Melbourne.
Oh,
So I
yeah, please,
may reach out.
please let me know when you come around. Melbourne is home. So that's really good. It has to be Nigeria. Anyway, let's come back here. Thank you so much, Katrina. It's very awesome to have you here. Highly engaging from the beginning to the end. We have a lot of nuggets that you have shared with us. And definitely, I am going to go to work this morning, and apply some of these. especially in some of the conflict management I have to do. I have to do. All right, cool. Question time. Let's just have a couple of minutes. If there is any question you would like to ask, you know, feel free to drop it in the chat box or you can unmute. We have Babajide that will help us coordinate that and impart the way to support. So if there is a question on your mind, we have a couple of minutes to really look at that before we run up with the PDU code and also a couple of other things. Any questions? I'm just gonna um, keep quite a bit just to allow questions. All right. In form, I can see your hands raised. Kindly unmute and ask your question.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much, Katrina. I really enjoyed your session and I learned a lot. I am working with an in a tech company, and I'm facing a lot of conflicts regarding upper management. So I want to know how you will handle a situation where a product manager is trying to, you know, manage your product owner's expectation or your client's expectation. In a case where they are trying to add work mid sprint, and you're trying to protect the interest of the team, but you're also trying to ensure that you're not getting on the tools of your product owner or your client. So, how do you manage such a situation? Thank
This
you.
is a really common question, and it's a great question, or I would say it's a lot in my experience. This particular situation, and actually anytime there's something impacting the team, I always go to the team and ask more questions because even if I have a point of view, I like to see if they're experiencing the same thing. So, for example, your product owner, I would ask them, like, hey, is this what is your process for pushing back? Do you feel empowered to say no to your product manager? And if this is happening where things are changing frequently throughout the sprint, I ask the team, this is what I'm observing. This is the challenge I see with it, but what are your perspectives? And the reason I do that is for two, because one, if the team also is feeling pressured or they're feeling like there's doing a lot of context switching, they feel like they get started with one thing and they have to get started another thing, that derails our delivery, which product managers don't like when that happens. So oftentimes I can go back and say, hey, this is the observation. This is what's happening. This is the impact it's happening. These are things team members are actually saying. So not only is it potentially blocking our delivery, because everything you give to my team changes, takes them away from something they've already committed to you. So we have to go to our product managers and say, what's the highest priority, right? We can probably do everything, just maybe not at the same time. But I also like to get the qualitative feedback because when I start hearing things where team members are feeling that they are stressed out or they're feeling like my work is being sideswiped, that will impact team morale and that could potentially cause them to want to leave. And a lot of people don't want to cause that either. I also come from a perspective of I believe that everybody wants to be here. And I genuinely believe that senior leaders don't want to be pressure cookers, right? They don't want to cause people to feel stressed out. So I come from a perspective of believing they have good intent. And if they just know the impact, then we can make decisions. And that's generally how I respond to that. Now, the second thing is if I go back to the team and they say they're okay with it, I also don't want to cause a problem, right? I don't want to raise a problem. But what I will say is, hey, the intent of, for example, it also depends on how long your sprint is. Because if I say, hey, our sprints are 2 weeks, where I'm seeing that we're constantly having things churn throughout the sprint, where we're having new work being adopted, it might be causing us to roll things over into another sprint or return things to the backlog. But if the team says they're good with it, then I might say, okay, well, then in that case, if we can't accurately predict what we're going to work on and for a 2-week time box, maybe we need to go to a 1-week sprint, or maybe Kanban is better, right? So normally when I get all that feedback, I comprise it, I go, this is the behavior, this is the observation, this is the impact. Is this normal? If this is normal, then we have to figure out how we need to respond to it. But if the responses I'm getting are not what the product manager is is not their intent, then they normally will go, okay, that's not normal. We don't want people to feel like they don't have control over their work. And we can say, okay, well, then we have to make different decisions then. We got to figure out a process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much for the perspective.
You're welcome. And I specifically asked in that situation where a product manager is putting pressure on the product owner, it's really important for me to go to the product owner and be like, hey, how do you feel about this? Right? Because your team's not going to like you. Your team's going to have a lot of problem with you. I know it's not you. So we got to figure out, do you feel empowered to say no? Because one of the greatest things a product owner can do is learn the word no, right? And protect the team. And I'll tell you, the majority of the time where I've had this situation and I brought it back where there's a lot of churn in the sprint, 9 times out of 10, it's because the product owner says I can do better. Basically, I can start saying no, and I can start only bringing things in when it's truly urgent. But that's not always the answer. That's a great example.
All right, Katrina, we have another question in the chat box, and it reads, in the moment when the conversation becomes tense, what's the most effective way to intervene without shutting people down?
Okay, so this is also a great example, and I would say I have dealt with this in 2 situations. The first is, how do I feel? Am I in the conversation? Am I the target? Am I the one that's getting frustrated? Am I the one that's feeling tense? Because that might be a case where I have to take a deep breath, and I might be messaging somebody on the side. Can you please step in because I'm not feeling good? Or I verbalize, I don't think I can hear you right now. I've said this. I don't think I can hear you right now, or I feel like I'm getting really frustrated and I think we might need to come back to this. So that's if I felt it. But if it is somebody else, I normally say, I have had where we go, I think that people are getting really frustrated right now. I'm hearing people are getting frustrated. I'm hearing where things are getting personal, tones are shifting. And I think maybe we need to take a breather, right? Do we need to step away? Do we need to solve this today? And so maybe we just go get a snack. Just go back to hangry. Hangry is a real thing. Sometimes people just need a break. And some companies are common for working through lunch. I'm not an advocate for that for this particular reason. So I also look at, is this in the morning? Is it tense because we really need to eat? Is it tense because it's late in the evening and we need to call it? It's been a long day. Is it tense because the topic is tense? So when I've been facilitating, I will say, I will call out the observation of what I'm seeing, because sometimes people will be like, oh no, I'm not frustrated at all. Or, hey, no, I'm fine. Or, oh, I didn't mean that. Like, I didn't mean to come off that way. And then we're good. So I think as a facilitator, just call out and say, hey, I really don't want to interrupt y'all, but right now this is what I'm hearing, and I really want to make sure we're good. And even at the end, when we feel like we have taken a breather, I have said, hey, I don't want anybody to leave this call with bad blood. I don't want you to leave this call feeling frustrated. Are we good? Do we need to talk about anything else? Right? And what that does, it gives adults in the room an opportunity to use their words. And that's all we can do sometimes, is give people the opportunity. And if people choose not to share, that's also their boundary and their responsibility. I would say it's reasonable that sometimes people are like, hey, no, I'm good. Maybe I need to bring this up later. Handle this offline, right? And I'll tell you, in a retrospective, oftentimes where things get tense because it's silent, meaning that there's a difficult conversation and I've asked a hard question, or somebody has asked a hard question and I said, hey, feel free to message me on the side if you need to. We can handle this, because I would rather you address it to someone than not address it at all. Okay. Somebody says, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to read the next question that says, how do you handle a team who is bad at, I think, a team member who is bad at communicating and tends to speak rashly?
I also go back to, so my go-to is always, are you okay? Like, this is my observation. Are you okay? Because sometimes I also have to go, you said tends to speak rashly, so that leads it to believe it's a pattern or behavior that we have seen. But I have to still look at it. I take that as I don't know anything about this person. Is this a one time? Is this um, is this multiple times? Did this person always speak this way, or did it start? Maybe they had a person. I have had people deal with some personal things, deaths of family members and friends, or medical issues, and then they're just under a lot of stress. What does speaking rashly mean? Right? Is it somebody raised their voice? They're very direct. Um, Sometimes I'll go to the person and I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, this is my observation, and I just want to check on you. Are you good? And if they come back and go, I'm really attentive to watching their response, because if somebody's like, I'm good, I'm like, this is what we're talking about, right? If you're like, I'm good, why are you asking? Like, this is why I'm asking, right? But if somebody's like, oh no, I'm good, I didn't mean that, I might say, okay, well, if that wasn't your intent, that's how it came across. So you might want to apologize, or you might want to, take a breather and step away. But so I usually when that has happened, I've had two scenarios where somebody didn't know that they were that way, and they're like, I'll be more attentive. Or somebody that's just how they were, and I had to escalate it, to be fair. I had to say, this person has received feedback multiple times that their approach is not working, and they are not adjusting to that approach. And multiple people come to me about this person. And then it's a people problem. It's a personnel issue that is up to their managers to have to decide how to coach. And then, because sometimes I go to the manager, even say, is this on your radar? Has anybody ever said anything, given you feedback about this person? Has this person been given that feedback? Because often what I also don't want to do in my role as a scrum master, it also depends on your role, if you're a manager or not, is I don't want to intervene on something that's already being addressed, overkill. But if a manager says, it is on my radar, but can you give me more experience? Give me more information. I said, this is my observation. Or, hey, I have actually talked to this person about it. They said they're okay, but the behavior still continues. Because when somebody's bad at communicating, it just gets into trickiness of, is this a personnel issue, coaching, somebody already talking to them? Is this on their performance review? Versus this person, I'm going to give you a real example that's more difficult. So I have had people that were problem children, and I had somebody that would like slam their fist on the table. They were one of those people that were corporate arsonists. That person, nobody liked working with them. When that person was out of office, people go, "Whew, it's quiet around here." Oh yeah, because so and so's not here. Oh, we actually got our meeting. We got the purpose of the meeting met. Oh, because this person's out of town. But I've also had another situation where somebody had told me, hey, you need to watch out for this person because they'll walk out of meetings, they'll stand up and be like, why are we doing this? And they were identified as a problem child. But when I actually met them, they learn different. They're likely on the autism spectrum. And they just have different social norms, and somebody needed to sit with them and be very clear about everything that we were doing. They don't read social cues very well. And when I sat with that person, got to know them, told them very clearly everything that we were doing and why, and also tell them, hey, this is your behavior, this is coming off, this isn't working. They were able to adjust to it. And so to me, it also depends on, I have to, that's why those other conflict management foundations of bias and understanding what norms look like, of understanding when it really is a people problem and somebody's intentionally trying to cause a problem versus when they're maybe, we just need to reset expectations.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Katrina. I see that there are quite a number of questions in the chat, but time is also a factor we really want to consider. But let me ask you in particular, is there a question that you would like to ask? Just one more question and then we round up.
Okay. Now I'll have to just pick one.
All right.
Okay. I think I'll pick a topic that we probably haven't really spoken so much on. So to ask how do you handle okay, no. Let me go with this. How do you manage a team member that does not own up when his or her actions affect the entire team and causes a major setback?
How do you manage a team member that does not own up when his or her actions affects the entire team back and causes a major setback? I have dealt with this a few times, currently experiencing this in some form. And I would say this is where my mediation background of document everything comes into play, right? We have to I have to document what was said, when was said, what were the actions and agreements, what does it mean to affect the entire team? Are team members verbalizing that there's a problem, or are you noticing that they just as a team are not corresponding with each other as much as they used to? For example, enter a manager into the chat, conversations almost stop, right?
Mm.
And so I would then say, if this team member doesn't own up to it, I would say, one, is this person not being proactive enough and they're not self-aware to know what their problems are, or they have been, some people have raised it to them and they are saying that they don't think that they're a problem. Because those are two
Mm.
different challenges to me. Because
Yeah.
the first challenge is they just don't know. We can work with that. We share that feedback. We walk through, again, our receipts of, hey, this is my observation. This is the impact. This is what I think would be a better, healthier approach given the people. In that situation, I say that very clearly because there are some teams that I'll call them like military task force. They're very A-type. They're very, say it like you want to say it. And that's not going to be a problem. But if you have another team that is more on the empathetic side and um, more sensitive to conversations, they're more relational, then I might say, hey, this approach that you're taking isn't working.
Yeah.
Now, if it is somebody that refuses to acknowledge that they are a problem and they refuse to acknowledge that and to refuse to acknowledge their problem and refuse to say I'm sorry, then I escalate it to the manager. If I've tried to address it to them, I've given them feedback that they've heard the team speak openly, then I have to take it to the manager and say, hey, these are some things that we've observed. I've given it to the person directly. Again, I say to the manager, is this on your radar? Have you experienced this behavior before? Has anybody else acknowledged this to you? Then sometimes the managers will say, no, this is the first time, or unfortunately, yes, this has been a known problem, and I'm either working with them on it, or maybe they might even be on a performance improvement plan that we didn't know about. And this goes into so our people sometimes are blockers. Sometimes the person is a blocker, and specifically in a role as a scrum master, but anyone that is a leader on the team, we have to protect the team, and we have to raise questions and concerns. I don't like it. I do not like when there's a people blocker, because one, it's more difficult to resolve, but I also just don't like when there is a person that's a problem.
Yeah.
But it all comes down in that sense of keeping your receipts and documentation, of being very clear, of go on the facts, start with the facts, even if you're stating your feelings and your observations and qualitative metrics, like when you're saying where you capture happiness metrics, if you've ever heard of that, on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling in your role right now? On a scale of 5, how did you like this sprint? If we see those start to decline on a period of time and we start talking about it, and you hear more than one person actually comment, I didn't like when this person did this, then we have to raise it. Have to raise it. I don't like it, but in some instances, I'll tell you, I've had where the company decided that they didn't address it, and you had then it gets really personal when I'm coaching people. I'm saying at this point, when you've done all these things and the company has made a decision that this person or persons has allowed to been stay, you have to decide, okay, do I want to continue to work in this environment? And you have to start making decisions for yourself about, do I go elsewhere?
All right. So much. Thank you so much, Katrina. I think that is a very, very comfortable place to really stop today in terms of questions. If there are other questions that we have not, talked about, there's something we always share in this community, connect. So, Katrina has shared,
I'm sorry,
uh,
Pete. Can I say one more thing? Because it's the person who just commented, you just made a good point.
yes.
One of the principles that I say when I start with any team is I believe everybody wants to be here, but I do not work well when there's a hostile environment, right? So those corporate arsonists that I call them, if there is any type of abuse,
Mm,
if there's literally people are being talked down to, they're being harassed, um, that's a non-negotiable for me. So the Koala Wole, I don't know if I pronounced the name right.
call our late. Yeah. Try.
I think that using your soft skills is good, but we also need to know we need to acknowledge when we're trying to tame a beast, right? And we want to use our soft skills to de-escalate the situation, but at some point the company has to decide whether they want to keep the beast there.
Mm,
Because ultimately we need to solve for if we're constantly trying to make decisions to manage around this person to keep them happy, that's solving for the wrong problem.
mm,
But
mm.
thank you,
Take them
Pete.
out.
That's
Take them out
golden.
back.
Yeah.
What'd you say,
Yeah.
Patrick?
Take them out back. Make them an offer they can't refuse. Sometimes it works.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it goes into when we're talking about conflict mode styles, is that some people are naturally competing, right? And sometimes you do have to be more competitive in those conversations. I am too old for that. I won't do it. That is not I just don't want to, right? I'll do it if I
Mhm.
have to, but if I'm talking about what drives me to success and what is an environment that I love to work in, so let's all just do what we need to do, get along without being rude to people, right?
Mm,
Without fighting. I don't want to fight all the time. If you want to fight, go be a lawyer. Go fight. I don't want to do that in a software development team. So that's my point of view. Yeah.
all all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. It's really, really a very, very good session today. I will encourage everyone on the call, please connect with Katrina. And if your organization is looking for someone that can talk to you in the space of what Katrina can actually support you with, please by all means reach out. And of course, if you need to reach out to me, I will connect both of you. So um, you will agree with me. This is a very, 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 very good session. We enjoyed it from the beginning to the end. And please, a round of applause, digital round of applause for Katrina today. Thank you so, so, so much. Now, in rounding up, of course, we will come to you back sometime point in the future, Katrina, for another session. But thank you for joining us today. For the PDU code for today, you will have 1 hour, 1.5 minute, 4.5 PDUs for the 1 hour, 30 minutes that we spend on this call. And yep, this is the code. So feel free to redeem it from PMI. We will come back next month, same time, third Wednesday of next month for the next, session for the next meetup. Until then, we will communicate with you what the topic would be and who our speaker would be. Um, this is where we're going to be stopping today. We have spent quite enough time together, and I think it's worth it at the end of the day. So, from the bottom of our heart, from the community, we want to say thank you so much, Katrina, for joining us. We do not take this for granted, and we know that you have placed some very good nuggets into our hands that we will be applying come tomorrow for people going to work tomorrow. And for me, this morning at work, I'll be applying some of those tricks. Thank you so much.
Great session.
Thank
Good
you all so
session.
much. Have a good evening, morning, and afternoon, wherever you are.
You as well, Katrina.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great
Katrina.
session.
Bye.
Great session.